Okay, so chemistry. In the last assignment, I asked you to tell me or do a research about chemistry on your own. In these notes right here, I am showing you the basics, the very basic parts of chemistry. So, what is chemistry? Chemistry is the study. The study of what? It's a study of matter and changes in matter. So those are the basic things. And I saw that many of your Jamboards that you've shared so far have those parts. So those are the main parts. It's a study of matter and changes in matter. And then I separated matter. Is matter, what do we study in matter? We study properties of matter. In your other classes before this class, we learned a little bit about properties of matter like colors and things like that, shape, size. And so that's about matter. Also, when we study matter, we study the composition. And I'll explain in the next page what composition means. Okay, so we study matter, its properties, its composition. We also study changes in matter. And the changes, what happens to matter, there are two types of changes: physical change and chemical change. Sometimes chemical change, we call it chemical reaction. So that's what chemistry is. And then, okay, so here is more detailed from the first page. So matter, this is the definition, basic definition of matter. Anything that has mass and takes up space. And if you've been in my class for the last 2 years, this is probably the one thing you remember the most is matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. Okay? And like I said in the last page, when we study matter, we study the properties of matter and the composition. So properties are characteristics of matter that can be observed and measured. So you can see it, feel it, touch it, smell it, all of that you can observe. You can bend it, things like that. So these are things you can see. You can hammer and it went flat like this. You can measure it by finding its its mass, how long it is, how short it is, how much space it takes up, things like that. So those are properties. Okay. Now composition is the stuff that makes up matter. So for example, water is made of oxygen and hydrogen atoms. And that's what we call composition of water. Water is matter, and it's made of oxygen and hydrogen atoms. This is DNA actually. It's made of different atoms: hydrogen, phosphorus, nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon. This is fatty acid. It's called fatty acid, and it's made of carbon, hydrogen, and a little bit of oxygen there. This matter is sugar, and its composition, that means what it's made of, is carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. So when we study matter, we study its properties, we study its composition. Okay. Also, it would not be chemistry if we don't study the changes in matter. So when we learn, as much as we can about properties and composition, we go to see how matter changes. So in science, in changes, there are two different changes. You can change matter physically. That's called a physical change. So if you take a plate and you break it, you change its shape, you change its size, but you don't change what it's made of. That's called the physical change. And when you eat ice cream in a hot summer day, the ice cream melts. Ice cream still tastes the same, except it's a liquid now. So the composition is not change. You only change the state that's from solid to liquid. And this example here is when you take a sheet of paper and you crumple it, you just change its shape. The paper is still made of the same chemicals as before. Nothing has changed in composition. That's called a physical change. Cutting wood, making it smaller, again, the wood is still made of the same thing. Okay? So that's called a physical change. Chemical change is when there's a change in the composition, chemical kind of. When you burn something, you burn a piece of wood, basically the chemicals in there are different now than it was before. That's a chemical change. When an apple goes bad, like this, the chemical in the apple is different than and it was before. Same when something rust, new, old like this, that's a chemical change. Exploding fireworks, that's a chemical change also. All right. Now you might go, oh, Miss Lisick, this is too much. I can't get it all. This is just the introduction. So basically, I want to make sure that you know the study of chemistry about matter and changes. We study properties, we study composition, we study changes in terms of physical change and chemical change. So that's the basic stuff. We will spend more time studying properties and composition. We will spend more time studying the changes in matter. Okay? So, right now, that's what I need you to understand with chemistry.